Hello and welcome to the Headache Doctor podcast, where on this podcast, it's our mission to educate and empower everyone with headaches and migraines so that you can break free from a life of fear of your next headache or migraine and dependence on medication. On today's podcast, we have a special guest. My favorite podcasts are the ones where we have patients that share their story. Stories are powerful. Stories are what drive people to make change in their life. And so what we're trying to accomplish with Jefferson's story here today is relate that to something that you, the listener, are going through. We're going to talk specifically about exercise-induced headaches, and then get into the details of Jefferson's story, and you'll probably hear a little bit of your own journey in it. So without further ado, thank you so much, Jefferson, for being on the Headache Doctor podcast. So Jefferson is a favorite around here at Novera. We enjoy our time with him. We get to spend a lot of time with patients, a couple hours a week. It's a big commitment as far as going through our process, and so it's nice when we enjoy the people we're working with. So thank you, Jefferson, for being a cool guy. What I want you to start off with, though, Jefferson, is just telling us about where this all started for you, and then we'll go from there.
So yeah, my name is Jefferson Gerwig. My story with Novera starts as of about 5 or 6 months ago. I think at this point is when I first reached out to you all. My how I found Novera was actually through this podcast. I was doing some of my own research on migraines, as I had experienced a recent migraine, was frustrated at experiencing yet another exercise-induced migraine. And so that's, I found y'all via the podcast and then reached out to your office to set up a discovery visit. And during that initial discovery visit, I knew that I was onto something here with the people I was talking to, in terms of helping me address the root cause of where my migraines were stemming from, as opposed to just addressing the symptoms of my migraines, which is, over the course of having migraines for nearly 15 years, I saw that from my own perspective and what I was doing on my own, I was purely addressing just the symptoms and not really getting to the root of where my migraines were stemming from.
Yeah, so many people are in that same boat where they think, I need to get to the root cause. They don't really know what to do. Why don't you give us a little background into where your headache or migraine journey began? Meaning, if my memory serves me, it was a soccer injury. You were an athlete, you were playing soccer, sustained a concussion or head trauma, something like that. Tell us more about when this all started.
Yeah. So soccer has always been a passion of mine. Was fortunate to play in high school and in college, and then played recreationally through my mid and late 20s. And it was during a soccer game. It was actually it was an indoor soccer game, and there was about I won't get into too many details of how indoor soccer works, but you've got a smaller group. It's not 11 versus 11 on the field. It's 5 versus 5. The field is more compact. There's a lot more sprinting, a lot more running, and the ball doesn't need to travel as far as a distance as it does in regular soccer. So everything's really condensed. So everything is faster, quicker, all these things. And towards the end of the game, another player on the opposing team was taking a shot on goal, and it happened to be the biggest guy on the field, taking a shot, trying to make this thing in the net, took and had a shot and went right into my head. And for those of us who play soccer and know soccer and have done it for years, it happens. It's part of the sport. But I remember just getting my clock run. I finished the game. There's about 5 minutes left. Wasn't anything that I felt like was more it was impactful, but it wasn't like something like, oh my gosh, that's the hardest I've ever been hit in the head.
Right.
So, took a minute. Lots of oohs and ahs on the court is what happens when people often get hit with the ball, and finished out the game. And as I said, there's about 5 minutes left in the game. And after the game, as everything's wrapping up, I realized that, I'm kind of still seeing stars here. I'm almost feeling like I'm seeing double. My clock was rung. It felt like a Looney Tunes episode
Hmm.
where, you
Yeah.
see the thing spinning around them. But it was enough so that I was like, I don't feel comfortable driving home. I'm also a little bit worried because this is lasting a little bit longer than it usually does. And at that point, I was a little concerned about internal head injury, potential bleeding. It was just something that it was impactful, and I realized that it was serious at that point. So anyway, had a teammate take me to the ER. Was at the ER. They did some scans and things, and everything checked out fine. I went home and was just like, that's another day of playing a contact sport, and part of what happens occasionally. Stuff happens on the field of play. Um, and didn't think much of it other
Yeah.
than, man, I had my clock rung that game.
Right.
Um, then after that moment, that head trauma that I experienced during that game, I started to develop what I've all referred to for my own self as exercise-induced migraines,
Mm-hmm.
where went on to play more soccer games after, and I realized that I could still play a soccer game fine or go for a run, but after the exercise stopped, I would find myself about 10 to maybe 30 minutes later developing real migraine symptoms. And when I say migraine, I realized I was having more than a headache with what was happening to me. It was um, just it would level me. And what I mean by that is like I'd have to go lay down, be horizontal, turn off the lights, and the rest of my day was spent in bed basically, just trying to get through the day, think about work the next day and making sure I'm ready for that and things. So it was just I would experience this again and again after exercising, and um, it wasn't always happening after exercise. And obviously, as someone who enjoys the outdoors and sports and things, it was starting to affect my quality of life really with just wanting to exercise or do an outdoor activity, but knowing that there's a 50% chance that I could have
Hmm.
a migraine at the end of this. And so that was, just starting to affect my way of life. Um, and I was, from there I started to seek, I guess, my own ways of remedying it without going to an expert to really, like I said, get to the root cause of things.
Yeah. So was this, you said 50% of the time you would experience the migraine, and the migraine would put you down for about a day or so?
Yeah, it was usually something that I'd be down for the rest of the day,
Yeah.
and then sleeping and starting my day the next day. I'd sometimes experience what a lot of folks in the migraine world refer to as brain fog,
Mm-hmm.
where I was functional but just not 100%.
So describe your symptoms. People like to connect what they feel to the patients we have on our podcast. So what specifically did you feel? Like, where was the location of pain?
Yeah.
How would you describe it?
Yeah. My symptoms often started at the back of the head,
Mm-hmm.
and then would work their way over my head and lodge behind an eye, typically behind my right eye.
Okay.
Enough to that would be a sharp pain of almost, gosh, it could be pinpointed. It was sharp, and I can put my fingertip on where it would lodge itself, basically. So that was um I've had migraines on the extreme end to where I remember it was again after an exercise and I was going to a restaurant to get something to eat. We those of us who exercise love to eat afterwards, obviously. That's why we exercise. Um, but like I remember going to place an order and my speech was impacted. I
Hmm.
couldn't I knew my speech was being impacted and I couldn't do anything about it. It was that's the most extreme I've had a migraine, but that to me was like, man, what is going on here? This is not my usual. So on the extreme end, I had had my speech impacted. For the most part, it was sharp pain behind the eye, enough that it would just level me to where I was sensitive to light, um, and couldn't function really. It was hard to think, as I mentioned, the brain fog, and that would also be something where you're not 100%. You can't think clearly.
Yeah. So right after it happened, you went to the emergency room. They did the scans, and they basically said there's nothing here really objective that is needing any treatment. Then you start feeling these symptoms after you exert yourself. And by the way, this type of headache would fall under exertion headaches or exercise-induced headaches or migraines. What what types of things did you pursue other providers as this was ongoing? Did you ever go see primary care neurology, and what types of things were they doing or saying to help explain this?
Yeah, so it is uh, in some ways I wanted to muscle through it
Mm-hmm.
and just say this is a me thing, this is temporary, I can figure this out on my own. And along kind of that avenue of pursuing changes, I would do over the counter, medicines, whether it's a Tylenol, an ibuprofen, something along those lines, or using an over the counter migraine specific medication that I would go for. That's where I started.
Okay.
I also started with doing my own research, and when you go to the internet, you get a large amount of opinions, and
Yeah.
especially things medical, where the one that stands out to me the most is caffeine intake. I feel like when you go to the internet, you get very extreme opinions. Some folks say do caffeine to help settle a migraine, and other people say stay away from it. So I've done both. I've loaded up on a couple of cups of coffee after a soccer match, during the summer, which seems about silly, but I've tried those things. But um, I did. So I kind of felt like I was on my own. I can handle this. I got this. I'll figure it out on my own. But as I mentioned earlier, I've been dealing with migraines for about 15 years, and it did get to the place where I finally brought it up with my primary care physician, and did receive some medication that was prescribed. I found that again with the medication, similar to the Tylenols and over-the-counter medications that I had tried on my own, as well as, like I said, migraine-specific over-the-counter meds, that I was constantly addressing the symptoms,
Yeah.
not the root cause, which, it's, and, well, without getting too far ahead here, what led me to Novera was finding the podcast here. After I had just had a migraine, I remember I was on the Peloton bike, which you can see behind me, had a great exercise on it. But at the end of it, I had a silly migraine, and it wasn't one that was completely debilitating. I remember I was like, I'm frustrated. I'm going to go walk the dog. I love walking my dogs, but it gives me time to think and kind of like chill out a little bit. And I was looking for your podcast, and I found uh, uh, a podcast you had done specifically on exercise and migraines, and I was like, I found something here that I'm not the only one who's experiencing this, and there's folks who know this is an issue, and that's really what led me to you guys.
Yeah, that feeling of you're isolated. I mean, the internet can do that to you because it doesn't provide. I mean, take caffeine, don't take caffeine, and that's where it stops. Very confusing. Doesn't provide any answers. And then the primary care doctor as well, well-meaning, well-intended, but maybe just isn't
Mhm.
able to provide the solutions you're looking for. And so, yeah, you land on our podcast. What I guess stepping back to your specific scenario, it sounds like the intensity of the workout was what you were connecting to the 50%, whether you were to have a migraine or not after the
Mhm.
workout, or was it more random than that? Like you couldn't really predict.
I couldn't really predict.
Okay.
Um, I was living in this world of like go and do an activity, um, go for a run, play soccer, go for a bike ride, go for a hike even, and I wouldn't. I'd live with this anxiety of like, am I gonna have a migraine at the? Is it worth it? I'm gonna ruin the rest of my day going for a run in the morning.
Hmm.
So I would in preparation from that, I would do everything I could to, again, tips from the internet, stay hydrated, where I would, but I would do it at a very large volume. I would drink an excessive amount of water before going to a soccer game or something to where it's just like something's up here. This is not the norm. It's good to stay hydrated. You should do that. But yeah, I felt like I was on the edge of overhydrating myself, perhaps. So it's, it would be so unpredictable, and the intensity of the exercise wouldn't necessarily play into whether I would have a migraine or not, whether it was a, you know, 30-minute exercise or a 2-hour bike ride or something along those lines. It wasn't predictable.
Were you through this time period, were you connecting it back to your initial injury and you thought, man, this is all just stemming from your bell getting rung, your neck has an issue. Did you connect those things? Did you know that like maybe my neck is the problem? Was that intuitive?
Yeah, yes, I would.
Okay.
That was intuitive. I felt like that soccer game where the guy took the shot and it rang my clock. I feel like I don't. I'm not sure if like that was the using the phrase that was the straw that broke the camel's back is the right thing, but that I had a specific moment in time to where it was like, whoa, that one was a little bit more than usual with
Hmm.
getting a head impact during a soccer game. So that anyway, that moment stood out to me. And after that moment, that's when the migraines onset.
Okay. All right. What is your neck, shoulders? What do those parts of so what do the neck and shoulders feel like after you exercise or during the migraine? Did you have symptoms in those areas that connected to the head pain that you referred to?
Um, I I have always had a stiff neck.
Yeah.
That's something that as I've realized that, that has played into, I guess, my migraine journey and working out the neck, the shoulders, when I seek care, and that I've been seeing results there, it's made me think about, oh yeah, when I go back and look at pictures of myself, why am I always favoring one side or the other? And so I think that's something that has maybe played into my journey is that the combination of having a stiff neck, um, as well as having my clock rung with the soccer incident, like those certainly don't help one another. I guess is what my view is on that.
Yeah. So you find the podcast on exercise and headaches. What stood out to you about that?
It I like I said, I felt like I wasn't on the island because
Okay.
as I've mentioned a couple times now, like I was experiencing issues for around 15 years before I found Novara. And I had, in talking with friends, talking with family about anybody else have these after they exercise, and people are like, no, I'm haven't had it. I felt a bit isolated with my with it being exercise induced. Um, and having found the podcast, it let me know that I wasn't the only one and that there's other people out there. I just hadn't come across them yet, or come across someone in the medical field who deals with this and hears about it. I just so the it just gave me a little bit of hope that, hey, I can reach out to these guys. There's something here. I'm not the only one.
Yeah. And by the way, exercise, our podcast on exercise induced headaches or exertion headaches on YouTube, I think is the most viewed, and it's one of the most downloaded on all the audio platforms as well. So there's a lot of people searching for a solution here. And we have people all the time reach out from out of state with exercise-induced headaches. And some of them are specific to soccer, but it could be weightlifting, going on a run, just anything that gets your heart rate up. We have people all the time that that reach out with the same type of headache. So I'm glad the internet pointed you to us, but I know that there's a lot of there's a lot of information out there that may not be as helpful. So you say, okay, let's give this a try. You book a discovery visit. I want to know what your initial thoughts were when we start talking about your situation. We lay out a plan of care. We say, let's do an initial evaluation. What was going through your head? Was it just, hey, this is exciting, I have an answer? Was there some skepticism? Where were you at in the early stages of working with us?
Yeah, the during my discovery session, so that was my initial sit down with Dr. Gutwin, and we I felt like it, it felt really good because I felt like I was being listened to. And like I said, I was finally getting some relief here that I'm not the only one. I've got someone in a room with me who knows about what I'm talking about. This isn't just me. But as I described my symptoms, such as starting in the back of the head, coming over the top, and lodging behind the eye, Dr. Goodwin, I could see him nodding the whole time, just smiling and like, okay, I know it. I've heard of this before. I have an idea of how we can get to the root issue, and that was very uplifting for me to hear, because for years I had just been addressing the symptoms, and I knew I was just addressing the symptoms, but I was also I was so frustrated that I thought my only way of moving forward was just to address the symptoms. And so that discovery visit for me was very uplifting, very motivating, gave me a lot of hope that, like, I'm talking with experts here who can lay out a plan of care for me, and we'll start this, with a few visits. We'll see where it leads, and if it leads in a good direction, in my case, I wanted to say great because it went very well, and we can take things from there. It wasn't for my plan of care, it wasn't this getting locked into for a year, for a long period of time. It was something I could kind of ease into and see if it works for me. And if it doesn't, try something else. If it does, let's stick with it. So
yeah, people have trialed and tried and been through a lot of things when they come to us, and so the way we start out is very much like that. I mean, we don't want to we want to encourage people and be confident in how we communicate, because if we can help you, like we want to show you that confidence so that you make the decision to move forward. But we understand that people are skeptical and they've tried a lot of things. So yeah, we try to bring people into it and really see, okay, this is working. What I want to talk about, Jefferson, now is what weren't you doing, or what were you staying away from that you've seen, okay, now I'm able to do these things after going through treatment? Because I know you have some really specific things that you've been excited about that you've been able to do without headaches. So let's talk about that.
yeah, happy to. So as I've been getting, in my early life, I always felt like I was a sprinter doing short-term events. One of the reasons I've enjoyed soccer so much was I was good for quick little burst of speed and running and all those things. But as I've gotten older, I feel like I've been kind of shifting more to endurance events, meaning um, you know, long 100-mile bike rides and such, as well as 24-hour biking events that I'll do with a group of friends and things. So, I've found a love and a new passion with cycling over the last through my early 20s and now to where I am today. And so I feel like I've done a few of those events. I was seeing results very quickly with my treatment that I was like, okay, I'm signed up for these things. I'm going to see how it goes, keep my fingers crossed. And at the end of the events, I'm not experiencing the migraines, which was just so wonderful. But I've enjoyed taking on these sorts of big endurance events that are lasting, a whole day in some circumstances, but like I enjoy doing that. I feel like I can go into those now without the apprehension or anxiety of, gosh, did I just waste a whole, how many days is it going to take me to recover from this migraine that I'm going to have at the end of this event? And that thought is no longer there. It is dissipated, and like I'm excited to do these events, and I can, you know, there's some of these events I'm signing up for, I find myself questioning why I'm doing these, but that's a totally different subject, But
Yeah, that's on
so
you, man. That's not on
yeah,
us.
I know, right?
You're the crazy one.
Yes.
That's amazing. What might be helpful for people is giving them context for how long it took you to go through the process, or at least, I guess, go through the process, but also like how long it took you to find some relief of sense of like, this is working.
Okay. Yeah, I would say so the way that my treatment plan started after the discovery visit was we kind of loaded up on visits and sessions there with physical therapy in your all's office. So we loaded up. We knew that I had a couple events coming up for this summer that I wanted to be ready for, and I'm signed up and I'm gonna do this. I hope I can get some relief here. I'm doing these migraine or not. We'll see where this leads. But like, so we loaded up on visits. I was doing 2 a week to start with, and we did that for, I want to say, probably 3 weeks or so. So about 6 visits total that we did within a month, to where I would say after, and I was also exercising in between appointments. And I would say, I was starting even after session 1, and we were doing, we were, I was getting relief. I'm not going to say that the whole migraines were out the window after visit 1, but I was finding relief in my neck, my shoulders, everything that connects there to the back of the head. I walked out feeling like I had an aha moment of we're on to something here. So we just continued to kind of load up with appointments and things to where we, by 4 to 6 visits, I'm seeing real relief here. And I'm really testing things and going out and doing training bike rides before these big events, to where I'm testing the system to see if it works, and it's working. Hence, no migraines. So, yeah, that's that was a big part of it. Was I was seeing results pretty quickly.
That's amazing. I'm glad you said that. That's the reality that as providers we see over and over again. And sometimes when we're talking to someone, and again, we understand skepticism and, okay, I've tried so many things. What are you going to be able to do that's different? But so many people within a visit, let alone 2 or 3 weeks, like it doesn't take that long, and we're seeing the other side of it. And that's why we have that approach of let's try it, see how it goes, because like most of the time people realize, okay, this is different, and we're getting to the source of the problem. So, I mean, for people that have suffered, like you were suffering for 15 years and then 3 weeks of treatment, and we're starting to find relief. That's pretty cool. I love what I do. I just, yeah.
It's very cool. I agree. Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like, with, just to add to what you're saying, like there's a lot, we're seeing a lot more out there of reports on head injuries, head trauma, and symptoms and things not revealing themselves for extended lengths of time. There's a lot more information on those things than what we had 10 years ago, 20 years ago, even, and so forth. And so I think it's an important thing for people to talk about, and share with people if they're seeing those symptoms, because they can be pretty severe and, like I said, debilitating in a lot of ways. And it's something that, as I mentioned, it took me a long time to find you all and to find relief and to quit addressing the symptoms and really get to what's going on here. What's the crux of this? Like, where does this stem from? So I think that the podcast is a great resource was a great resource to me to finding information, because there's a lot out there, and it's hard to maneuver through like the weeds of what's on the internet and all these different sources and where to go. So it's my first thing would be talk to an expert and start there, and really, again, with my discovery visit, like I knew that we were on to something, because we were getting to, as I was describing things, I could just see Dr. Gutwin saying, yeah, I hear you. I think I can help. But it was being able to share my story and like what had gone on with me openly, to where, again, this wasn't immediately sit down and here's what we think you should take to address these symptoms. It was like, I think I know what's going on there. I think I know what your trigger is with the migraines and where it's coming from. So
yeah, well, that's amazing. I think I'll wrap us up here, Jefferson, and just say I really appreciate you sharing your story. Exertion headaches, exercise-induced headaches, like I said before, are they're one of the most popular podcasts, YouTube podcasts, and then audio-wise as well, that we have as far as searched and downloads. So there's people out there that need to hear your story, and will find this very encouraging. So thank you so much for being willing to doing this and going along this journey with us at Novera. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks again for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, for you, the listeners out there, I hope that was encouraging. I know it was encouraging, especially if you have exercise or exertion type headaches. What I would love for you to do, as Jefferson said, the internet is just crowded with all this information. And so the algorithms out there, they work better to promote the actual helpful information, such as this podcast, if we like and share and send it to someone that you might know who would appreciate it. So please do that for us, as it helps grow. It helps us get out there in front of more eyeballs, so that we can help more people. Thank you all for being a part of this journey. Thank you, Jefferson. As always, we'll continue on our mission to educate and empower everyone with headaches and migraines, so that we can break free from a life of fear of your next headache or migraine and dependence on medication. I'll see you next week.